So the day before that was January 6th, 2025, and that day the United States Congress certified the recent presidential election. Now this ceremonial procedure is so uneventful that I had either never heard of it or been aware of it or read any stories about it, nor had it just crossed my mind if I'd ever seen a little excerpt in the New York Times or the Washington Post 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago, etc. Not 4 years ago. It didn't make an impact. So if any of you were aware before 4 years ago that January 6th had a significance in the election of a president and the counting and certification of the electoral votes, then good for you. But I think most of us had never really heard about this before until January 6, 2021. So January 6, 2025 was a day of peace. It was just tourists. There were no police officers hurt. There were no arrests. There was no controversy. The loser of the election accepted the result of democracy in action. Now, the contrast to January 6, 2021 is blatantly obvious. It was called by the loser of that election a day of love. Many people who supported him said those were just tourists. Those are lies. Those aren't differences of opinions. Those are lies. And it's important that we call out lies, because if you're going to understand life and events and history, you need to try to figure out what the facts are. And for those of us who are alive now, when our grandchildren look back some years later, what was January 6th all about? First of all, you'll know which January 6th you're talking about. It's like September 11. You don't have to ask which year was September 11. There's only one. Everyone will know what January 6th is, but it's important that we help to keep the record going and the record straight, so that people will remember what actually happened on January 6th and why it happened. Why were people motivated to do what they were doing? On that day, and this is partly important because going forward, there is a question about whether, 8 days from now, there will be mass pardons for people who decided the best thing to do with a flag like our friend has back there is to hit cops over the head with it. There's a threat of pardons for those involved in the only January 6th that anyone remembers. From that event, more than 1,580 defendants have been charged with crimes. From that group, about 1,270 of them have been convicted of crimes. Only 3 have been acquitted. More than 660 people from that day have been sentenced to prison for their attack on the Capitol. This is something that happened. This was the largest investigation in the history of the Department of Justice, which says a lot because that goes back to the 1800s. So, again, with a theme of this year being the importance of the truth, it is important that we keep talking about this. Hey, puppy. He just wanted a comfortable seat. Hannah, I think you have to come up and repeat your speech because the dog didn't hear it. Anyway, we will continue talking about this, and there, of course, there are efforts to rewrite history. There are efforts to whitewash what happened. There are efforts to, on the one hand, efforts to release facts and interviews and photographs and videos of what happened that day, and facts to suppress and efforts to suppress all of that. So we need to keep raising our voice on this issue as we do on so many others.